Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. We're just wrapping up now Hillary Clinton's foreign policy speech to the Council on Foreign Relations. This is now Bush-Cheney warmed over, but in a somewhat more, appealing, less abrasive form. It's more polite. It's more indirect. We could say Condoleezza Rice, when she was Secretary of State, wanted to be the dominatrix of the world with a whip. She was caricatured as a vampire. Hillary wants to be the schoolmarm of the world, the governess of the world. She wants to dominate because it's for your own good. It's not so aggressive, but it's quite oppressive in its own way. The thing that this ruling elite ignores, they look back to the time, the American moment, right? If this is the new American moment, the first one was, of course, the 45 to 50 or thereabouts, right? From the end of World War II to the time of the Korean War, that's when you get the creation of the United Nations, the creation of NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty, the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the European Coal and Steel Community, the forerunner of the European Community, European Union. What they don't see, though, is that this is not the scheming ability of these skull and bones characters, right? Harriman and his friends from Yale, Kennan, and, above all, Acheson and Marshall, the favorite general of Wall Street from the time he worked for Pershing. It's because the U.S. had something to offer the world, and that something was economic progress. As long as you had the war going on, you had Lend-Lease for the British, Lend-Lease for the Soviets, Lend-Lease for all sorts of people. You could then do civilian aid under Lend-Lease, and Roosevelt went as far as he possibly could in using Lend-Lease to get the beginnings of post-war economic assistance for reconstruction and development bootlegged in, if you will, under Lend-Lease, because you had these Republican deficit hawks, right, the Tafts and these characters. If we'd left it up to them, the U.S. would have succumbed in World War II with their penny-pinching, nickel-nursing methods. The U.S. was offering Lend-Lease, and then, of course, it began offering the Marshall Plan. There was a gap there of a couple of years, but they finally got the point. The ruling class in those days was depraved in many ways, but they had a sense of reality enough so that they could see the necessity for the Marshall Plan, especially in Europe, and then the Bretton Woods system, the combination of the Bretton Woods fixed parities and gold convertibility, plus the Marshall Plan, plus then the Korean War to create a spur to production and investment. That's how you got your post-war boom going. And the Point 4 program. In other words, there was a foreign aid budget in those days. This was Truman's Point 4, and this foreign aid budget meant something. So if you've got Lend-Lease, the Marshall Plan, Bretton Woods, Point 4, and some related programs, you've got a serious program, you've got a serious approach to economic development, reconstruction of the world. And this is what makes the UN, NATO, European Community, OECD. OECD is simply the form of the Marshall Plan. So what do you have today? Casino economy, derivatives, gas, free trade, immiseration. There's no positive perspective. A world depression coming out of New York, coming out of London, and infecting the world. And how is that going to work? It simply can't. So the blindness of the ruling elite of the Anglo-American part of the world is reflected in this important landmark speech by Hillary at the Council on Foreign Relations. It shows that this is a feckless, incompetent ruling class. Behind all the crises that we see, the crisis of the Anglo-American financier ruling oligarchy itself, the ruling class, is the overarching crisis. These people have got to be bounced out. They've got to go. They've got to be replaced by competent leadership with an awareness of program and, above all, a sense of reality, which this is now the ancien regime. This is the old regime, 1789. This is the Let Them Eat Cake Brigade, right? Let them eat human rights. And you can see human rights for her. Cynical method to attack Egypt, Russia, China, to try to contrast, to counter the Chinese in Africa. And I would stress again this dismemberment of Sudan, right? We've talked about the Bernard Lewis plan and the related plans in the Mideast, carving up, right? Iran gets carved into 4 or 5 countries, Iraq into 3 countries, Lebanon carved, Turkey carved, Syria carved, Alawite entity, Kurdish entity carving into 4 or 5 different countries, on and on. Sudan, of course, carved on that north-south axis with the idea that you're going to take away the oil, and this leads to a civil war. And she seems to know that, but she's going to push ahead. Because that's the U.S. approach to Africa, as far as I can see, is scorched earth. Destroy whatever you can to prevent the Chinese from getting it, because otherwise they're going to get it, because they have something to offer economically, and you don't. The other thing, of course, not far from the surface, Hillary's personal ambition. She is obviously planning for the post-Obama. She can see what's going on. Obama is now on his way to being the loser in the November elections, the big loser, the repudiated Messiah, right? The prophet who is without honor in his own land, the rejected Messiah, the rejected appointed one, or Mahdi, or whatever he's going to be. And he's going to be the big loser in Afghanistan. And if he tries to hang on, you can see that the public support, even the ruling elite support for Afghanistan, is collapsing. There's now an ad hoc Afghanistan working group with various people in it, and that's going to lead then maybe to an official Afghanistan study group, which will be on the model of the Iraq study group, promoting ways to recast this, basically to liquidate this adventure, to get out of there, to go to the Biden plan, or better yet, the divine plan. Remember, CIA drones, CIA and special forces assassins can dominate the country. So that seems to be where we're going. Could Hillary be prevailed on with a draft? That's what she's thinking, that there's going to be a draft to her as an experienced, competent politician and bureaucrat to come in and take up the reins of the Obama presidency. Obama could be out sooner than you think. A nervous breakdown, anything is possible. It depends on how colossal the defeat is in November. The defeat by now may be somewhat overrated, but then again, one does not know. And the popular, what can we say, people being fed up with Obama, this has now gone very, very far. So who knows how long Obama will be there, and Hillary is obviously circling for her own personal gain and ambition. We'll be back in a minute.